Okay.
Let's get started on page 767. We're coming up to Pesach. Go over some of the laws that have to do with Pesach. So the first thing we have here is the search for chametz. Pesach is going to be Monday night.
Right. I'm going to take this one.
23rd, 24th. It's Monday night is Pesach. So Sunday night before Pesach, we're going to do the search for chametz. Search for chametz starts after nightfall. They'll have an announcement. It's about the time, a little bit after, around the time Shabbos is over. I guess around 8 o'clock or something. I guess around 8 o'clock or something like that. They'll have the shul will have that time. This will be the night before the Seder. We do a search for chametz, and obviously before that we want to have cleaned out chametz. And the chametz is anything that's going to contain one of the 5 grains. You have wheat or barley, oats, rye, or spelt. Any of those grains that are not being made into matzah, kosher for Pesach matzah. There is not kosher for Pesach matzah, but you have kosher for, if it's not made into kosher for Pesach matzah, it's been left to these grains have been left to come in contact with water without following the strict procedures that we have to make matzah, which is the entire process is done within 18 minutes. It's done making sure that the nothing could possibly become leavened. Anytime you have one of these ingredients, and you can have this in food mixed with these ingredients, you can have in food that's cooked in pots or pans or ovens that have been used to make chametz. So that's going to absorb the flavor of chametz. You're going to have taste. You maybe have even some crumbs of chametz left behind in those pots and pans. So anything that you're going to be eating on Pesach needs to be only kosher for Pesach food, or only food that's been supervised that we know is not having any type of chametz mixed into it. And aside from things like, let's say, fresh fruits or vegetables, something that have been, there's nothing mixed into that, but still you want to clean those, make sure. Some people have a custom to only have vegetables and fruits that they can peel. You shouldn't have any type of chametz, anything, any crumbs, any bread, any grains that would have been stuck to this. We also have things like milk and eggs. We buy only before Pesach, even if they don't, they usually don't have grain mixed into them. But if you're having milk and eggs that are constantly being produced, you have milk that's produced on Pesach. We have a concern maybe the animal's been fed with grain. Maybe some of that grain got into the milk somehow. Always, we want to have these things that are not necessarily under direct supervision for Passover, that would have been purchased in advance. But generally, we buy food that's made for Pesach, and we clean the house in preparation for Pesach. It's nice to clean the whole house, but specifically areas in the house where one has eaten, that needs to be at least vacuumed, swept, and make sure there isn't any crumbs of bread hiding under the chairs, anything like that. And any type of utensils that you're going to be wanting to use on Pesach that have come in contact with food need to be covered and cleaned. For instance, the tables that you eat on during the year, to eat them during Pesach, they have to always be covered. Put down you clean the table and put down a tablecloth that's going to stay on that. You can tape a plastic tablecloth or something that's always going to stay there throughout Pesach. You're never going to be uncovering and not eating on the same surface that you're eating on during the year. The shelves in the kitchen, the countertops should be covered with contact paper. You can have other types of materials that you can use to cover the counters. Things like sinks and ovens, if you want to use them again, they also have to be kashered, and there are specific guidelines. And I think the rabbi sent out a list of how to kasher oven to be able to use it again on Pesach, or to kasher dishes generally, like china dishes cannot be kashered, but some types of silverware can be kashered, or glass can be kashered. So again, a lot of people will just have, Pesach dishes, or you can buy plastic dishes. Paper dishes can sometimes be a problem. The paper is treated with various elements that is generally not recommended to use on Pesach, but plastic disposable dishes, so they work also. And so after the house, though, after everything is clean, after all of that is done and taken care of, when you come to Sunday night before Pesach, we do the search for chametz. The search is done at night. It's done by candlelight. If you don't feel safe using a candle, you can use a flashlight to do the search. And generally the idea is to go through the house, go through places where there has been chametz, where people have eaten during the year, and be looking there, seeing, is there any type of chametz present? Is there anything here that should not be here on Pesach? There is a custom that before the search begins, one hides 10 pieces of bread. It can be the person who's doing the search can hide them. That's not going to be much of a search, though. If you want other people, sometimes we'll hide the piece of bread, and that makes it more of a challenge to find that. But again, the main search is not about finding the pieces of bread. We should do it, but the main search is about making sure there isn't any chametz that's left over. We gathered together those pieces of bread, and before the search, he says on page 769, he tells us that before beginning the search, you recite the blessing, Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvosav v'tzivanu al bir chametz. Blessed you Hashem, because you have given us the mitzvah of removing chametz. It's the blessing we found in the Siddur. After one says the blessing, obviously you start doing the search without talking, and it's best not to really be talking about unrelated things to the search throughout the whole time that you're searching for chametz. After you finish searching for chametz, you have to annul the chametz. Any type of chametz that you own is a declaration. It's printed in the Siddur. It's in Aramaic. It can be said in English. It can be said in any language you understand, declaring that any chametz that I have not seen, anything that has not been found, if I missed something in my search, I am nullifying that chametz. I do not want to be owning that chametz, because in addition to the prohibition of eating chametz, the Torah also tells us that we should not own chametz on Pesach. So therefore, we say, I annul any chametz that I own. In addition to this, we sell our chametz to a non-Jew, and the rabbi will have documents to do that. You appoint the rabbi as your agent to sell your chametz. Anything of chametz that you might have, any food that you might have not finished, you want to set aside, you put it somewhere away from your Pesach food. You have to put it in a designated place, and you can sell that to a non-Jew. And again, only Jewish people have to keep the holiday of Pesach, so chametz that's owned by a non-Jew is okay. They can own it. You're not owning chametz on Pesach. You're certainly not eating chametz on Pesach. And but this obviously has to be done before Pesach starts. So you fill out the form, and it's going to come into effect on Monday morning, the eve of Pesach. So Monday morning, and that's why he tells us that the chametz that you're going to leave aside should be put in a safe place before you start your search. So any chametz you're going to be selling to a non-Jew, you put that aside, put that in its own place in the cabinet or whatever, and leave that there. Any chametz you want to eat, for breakfast on Monday morning, you can also put aside for that. So now you get to we go to page 777. Just going through some of the basic laws. Obviously, there are more in-depth things here. So you come on Monday morning. is the eve of Passover. That's actually the day, Monday, in the times of the temple, Monday afternoon would have been the time that we would have offered the Passover sacrifice in the temple. So Monday has some of the status of a holiday already. For instance, we don't say the whole month of Nisan. We don't say Tachanun, but we also don't say Hamnatzech. We don't say any type of penitential prayers on Monday. It's already a holiday. Also, afternoon on Monday, noon is a halachic time. It's going to be about 1 o'clock now with the clock change. But around afternoon on Monday, one is not supposed to be doing any type of forbidden labor for Chol HaMoed. Practically, this means anything that you're not doing to get ready for the holiday. If possible, this is time to set aside and be focusing on the holiday. So, making preparations for the holiday or whatever. Obviously, someone needs to go to work. They can do that. You can drive, whatever. But it's not. It's a time that you should be. Any non-essential work should be put aside, just like we do during Chol HaMoed. The non-essential work should not be being done then. If someone wants to get a haircut or shave or something like that, that should be done before noon on Monday. So do it Monday morning or do it Sunday night. But it should not really be done. One can use a non-Jewish barber, but if one is going to shave themselves or cut their own hair or something, go to a Jewish barber. That should be done before noon on Monday. Again, because at that time was the time we were able to offer the Passover sacrifice. And also beginning at noon on Monday is the time at which it's prohibited to eat chametz, to own chametz, to have anything to do with chametz, because that was the time, again, they're starting to offer the sacrifice. And they'll have the exact times that we actually stop eating chametz a little bit earlier, just to make sure there's enough time that you definitely have stopped before noon, and you definitely have enough time to burn the chametz. Burning is the preferable way to dispose of these 10 pieces of chametz and any other chametz that you find during your search. If you can't burn it for whatever reason, it needs to be rendered inedible. You can do that by, let's say, pouring bleach over it or something that makes the chametz inedible and needs to be thrown out. Now, when you have a garbage can that you own, put chametz in it, you have not taken that out of your possession. You put it in the garbage can, but you still own that garbage. So if you want to dispose of it, you need to actually take that, make sure the garbage has been picked up before it'll be about 11 something on Monday morning. Either garbage picked up or take it to a public garbage can somewhere, a dumpster, some place where it's no longer in your possession, or that you've rendered it inedible by pouring bleach over it, or most preferably by burning it. And again, after one does this, one again nullifies any chametz. There's the language is printed in the Siddur, kol chamira, that any type of chametz that one owns, one no longer wants to be owning that chametz, and that should be done on Monday. Another thing which we do on Monday, people who are firstborns have a tradition to fast on the day before Pesach. This is in commemoration of the final plague which happened on the night of Pesach. It was the plague of the firstborn, from which the Jewish people were saved, and they were not killed along with the Egyptian firstborn. Most people don't like to fast that day. It's a long time until they eat that night. So they'll have I assume there'll be a siyum here. They make a festive meal, just like we had now, a siyum, at which the people who are firstborn can come. Generally speaking, only men who are firstborn have the custom to fast or come to the siyum. So we talked about selling the chametz. I assume there'll be forms and ways to sell the chametz. Come to the Seder itself. We go to page 799. Just going to briefly through some of these halachos. So one of the among the different things that we do have in Seder, we have 4 cups of wine. 4 cups of wine commemorate the redemption from Egypt. When Hashem told the Jewish people they were going to be taken out of Egypt, He tells them 4 distinct languages of redemption. V'hotzesi v'tzalti v'ga'alti v'lakachti. I will take you out of Egypt. I will save you from Egypt. I will redeem you from Egypt, and I will take you to be my nation out of Egypt. And therefore, we have 4 glasses of wine to commemorate these 4 expressions of redemption and other symbolism. Some explain they're symbolic of the four mothers of Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, and Leah. And there are different symbolisms, and we drink these 4 cups. They should preferably be wine. If one cannot drink wine, one can have grape juice for these cups. Red wine is preferable because red wine is considered a more respectable drink. If one has white wine that's of a higher quality, one can have white wine of that quality. But all things being equal, we prefer red wine. Red wine also reminds us of the blood of the Jewish children who were killed by Pyrrha. And the cup that one drinks for the 4 cups should have at least 3 ounces of wine in it, and one should drink most of that cup, or preferably the entire cup. Some say the cup should have 5 ounces, but the cup should be full, whatever size cup you have. So if you have a very large cup, you might want to try using this somewhat smaller cup for the Seder. If not, you fill up the whole cup and just drink about at least about 2 to 3 ounces of it, and then fill it up again, and you don't have to finish it, but the cup should be full. We also have a cup for Elijah at the Seder, the Kos Shel Eliyahu, and that should also be filled up. There are different reasons for this tradition. One is based on the argument in the Talmud. There's an opinion in the Talmud that says there should actually be a 5th cup, which corresponds to the 5th language of redemption that says that Hashem will bring us into the land of Israel, and others say that is not applicable in times of exile. So there's a dispute. We put the 5th cup on the table and we say, when Elijah comes, when the redemption happens, that dispute will be resolved. So we have the cup, but we're not going to be drinking from it. And there's a tradition, of course, that Eliyahu comes to every Seder. We open towards the end of the Seder, we open the doors to so to speak, to invite him in. Some people will pour the cup at that time in the Seder, and others actually pour the cup at the beginning of the Seder or before benching, and then they'll have that cup on the Seder. And then after the Seder is over, you can pour the wine back in the bottle. You can use it for Kiddush the next day. So that's the wine, the matzahs. Obviously, we have eating matzah at the Seder is one of the most important parts of the Seder. That's one of the biblical mitzvahs is to eat matzah on the night of the Seder. A lot of the other things we do are rabbinical mitzvahs, but eating a matzah is actually a biblical mitzvah. Obviously, you have to buy kosher for Passover matzah. They sell, there is such a products of egg matzahs or things like that are not, generally speaking, Ashkenazim don't use them except for people who really need to. But certainly for the Seder, one should not be using egg matzah. The reason is that egg matzah has, or they call it egg matzah, it can have any type of egg or fruit juices mixed into the matzah. But the matzah we eat at the Seder, the Torah calls it lechem oni, calls it poor man's bread. And the matzah, we learn from that the matzah eaten at the Seder should just consist of flour and water. So whether one eats egg matzah during the rest of Pesach or not, the actual matzah that's on the Seder plate, that's eaten to fulfill the mitzvah, should be just the plain flour and water shmura matzah, the matzah that they sell for regular unflavored matzah. That's also why, even though usually we dip the challah into salt or honey on Rosh Hashanah, we don't dip the matzah into anything. We eat the matzah. The matzah should be eaten plain, like a poor man's bread, like the Jews ate in Egypt. We take 3 matzahs at the Seder. There are different symbolisms of that. They symbolize the Kohen, Levi, and Yisrael, the 3 divisions of the Jewish people. Some say they symbolize also the Avot, the 3 patriarchs, Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. And we're going to eat during the Seder. We end up eating the top. We break the middle matzah. We're going to put half of that away for the afikomen, which is the matzah we eat at the end of the Seder. So then we eat the top matzah, and half of the middle matzah, we eat from that at the first eating of the matzah. Then we take the bottom matzah, and we make a sandwich between that matzah and maror and the bitter herbs, and we eat that as the second eating of matzah. So we come to the bitter herbs. So he tells us here is on page 801, number 3, for maror, for the bitter herbs, it is customary to use horseradish. Horseradish is very difficult vegetable for most people to eat. When we're talking about horseradish for the maror, at the Seder needs to be fresh horseradish, not when you buy pickled horseradish, buy the jar of horseradish. So that's been treated. You've added vinegar to it. They've added spices to it. So you're not having the fresh horseradish that we need to have for the mitzvah. So what the most common thing that people will do is to have an alternative substance that can be used for maror is romaine lettuce. You can use romaine lettuce. They sell it. It's much more palatable than the horseradish. But or you can actually do the fresh horseradish or freshly grated horseradish, or if you like biting into chunks of horseradish, if that's your thing, you can do that also. Or you can do the romaine lettuce, and they sell it with already pre-checked. If you buy just fresh romaine lettuce, you have to wash it thoroughly and make sure there are no bugs in it. Sometimes there are bugs which we don't want to be eating, but you can buy a pre-checked or ready to go romaine lettuce, and or you can do fresh horseradish. And you have to have they tell you the different amounts of how much to eat between the stalks of romaine lettuce or the horseradish. You can actually combine the two if you want. A little bit of that horseradish taste. You can combine that with some lettuce to make up your amount of romaine lettuce. So then you dip that into the charosas, and everyone has their own special way of making charosas. It consists of wine mixed with various fruits. He gives examples here: figs, dates, pomegranates, apples. Apples are the most common thing. You mix it with some sweet spices like cinnamon. You mix it together. It's supposed to symbolize the mortar that the Jewish people made in Egypt. You mix it together with the wine, and it becomes to be a thick consistency, but it should have some liquid in it because you want to. You're actually dipping the maror into this, and then you're going to dip the sandwich. When you make the sandwich of matzah and maror, you're going to dip that sandwich into the charosas. And the idea is not to be eating, again, like we said, we want to be eating the actual matzah, the actual horseradish. So we don't want to, actual romaine lettuce, whatever it is, we don't want to, overpower this with charosas. So we dip into the charosas. When you're actually eating it for the mitzvah of maror, you just dip it into the charosas and then shake off most of the charosas. You can eat the charosas later. People like to, I don't know, maybe if people don't like to, you don't have to eat the charosas later. But if you like it, you can certainly have that later. But when you're actually eating the maror for the mitzvah of eating maror, it should just be dipped into, and then whatever excess charosas is shaken off. The other thing which we put on the Seder plate, we have a vegetable, such as parsley, celery, potato, onion, any type of vegetable in which the blessing is berei pri ha'adamah. It comes from the ground. We eat this towards the beginning of the meal, dipped in salt water or vinegar or some other dip. And the reason, again, why we're having this vegetable is twofold. One is to say the blessing of berei pri ha'adamah. We're going to eat the maror later. We're not actually going to make a blessing over the maror, but we make a blessing. You have commanded us to eat maror, but we don't make the blessing that we normally make over vegetables because we're eating the maror after we've already washed our hands and started eating matzah. So we want to just make this blessing, make sure we make this blessing, thank Hashem for creating the fruits of the ground. Also, dipping the vegetable symbolizes the Jewish people in Egypt. The salt water symbolizes the tears of the Jewish people. We're dipping a vegetable to commemorate the vegetable. In Aramaic was called karpas, which symbolizes the hard labor, the perech, the hard labor that the Jews went through. Samech is the number for 60 myriads of Jewish people who went through hard labor in Egypt. The other two things which we have on the Seder plate is the shank bone and the egg. Technically, you can take any two cooked dishes. If you whatever reason didn't have a shank bone and an egg, you can take two pieces of meat or two pieces of fish or whatever cooked food you have and put that on the Seder plate. But the tradition is to have a zroa, a shank bone, any type of bone of an animal with some meat on it that's roasted, and to have an egg, a hard-boiled egg. Some people also roast a hard-boiled egg and put those on the Seder plate. Those commemorate the two sacrifices which we would eat in the temple times. We offered the Passover sacrifice. We also had what was called the Chagiga sacrifice, the holiday sacrifice that was brought to celebrate the festival with also we brought on Monday afternoon with the Passover sacrifice, and we can't eat these now, but we put these two cooked dishes on the Seder plate to commemorate these sacrifices. The other thing which we want to make sure we do at the Seder is we lean. We eat, especially to eat the matzah and to drink the cups of wine. To do that while reclining is an important thing. That was the manner in which free men, important people, ate in Greco-Roman times, and our sages established that as part of the tradition of Passover, to eat it in a luxurious way. Generally speaking, this applies to both men and women, but women, for the most part, have the custom of following an opinion that says that one is no longer required to lean. Since women are not usually, even in the times of the Talmud, women, generally speaking, did not lean, so they followed this opinion that says that nobody has to lean anymore. Because, most people, even you go to, fancy state dinners, most people are not leaning. Most people are sitting straight up. The majority opinion says that knows this was a specific rule from the sages that everyone has to lean at the Seder. Doesn't matter if nobody leans anymore, we still have to do it. And that's the opinion that most men follow. And most women follow the opinion that says that one does not have to lean nowadays. If one wants to lean, there's absolutely nothing wrong with doing that. But men really should lean. If a man ate the matzah without leaning, you should eat the matzah again. Make sure to eat the matzah again while leaning. When drinking the cups of wine, generally speaking, you don't have to drink the cups of wine again. The second cup one should drink again, but some say also the first cup. But certainly the matzah, if a man ate the matzah without leaning, he should make sure to eat another thing of the matzah. And again, when we talk about leaning, leaning means to lean against something. So you lean against the side of the chair, lean against a pillow or something. Just going like this doesn't really do anything, because nobody ever ate like that, like sitting like this without leaning on anything. So you want to be actually reclining on something. The Talmud says even reclining against your friend. Lean on someone else. But leaning means to lean on something. There's a custom that the one leading the Seder wears a kittel, he wears a white robe like we wear on Yom Kippur, that symbolizes, among other things, symbolizes the looking like angels, looking like the priests who would serve in the temple on the bringing the Passover sacrifice and other important rituals. So the other thing is the Seder has to start after dark. So page 805, Seder has to start after nightfall. Normally we can start Shabbos early, we can start holidays early. The Seder has to be eaten after nightfall. Again, we're not able to eat the Passover sacrifice nowadays, but we try to commemorate the rich as much in our observance of the Seder as was done in the time of the temple. And in the time of the temple, again, the Seder meal had to start after dark to eat the Passover sacrifice then. So we start again after dark, and also the matzah, which again we said is biblically required even nowadays to eat the matzah. We try to eat the matzah after dark, and that'll be after the time that Shabbos is over. Again, that's the time the Seder can start. When we start the Seder, the order of the Seder is really it's written in the Haggadah. We start with Kiddush, with the first cup of wine. We wash our hands without a blessing. We eat the karpas, this vegetable dipped in salt water. We break the middle matzah. Then we read the Haggadah. Reading the Haggadah is also a biblical commandment to talk about the Exodus from Egypt. Both men and women should participate in reading the Haggadah. They're both obligated in it. And children who are old enough to participate also. A lot of the holiday is geared towards children to make sure they can participate and understand what's going on. Even if someone, whatever, has to get up and deal with the cooking or deal with the children, deal with some other thing, try and make sure you read out at least as much of the Haggadah as possible. And it's important, both men and women, important to read through the Haggadah, to talk about it, to discuss it. At the end of the Haggadah, we drink the second cup of wine. Then we wash our hands again, this time with, like we always do before eating bread, wash with a blessing. We then eat the matzah. We holding all three matzahs, we say the bracha of hamotzi, we always say before eating bread. And then over the top two matzahs, we say the special blessing, Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvosav v'tzivanu al achilas matzah. We thank Hashem for giving us a special mitzvah to eat matzah. Then we take a piece from both the top and the middle matzah. It has to be the amount that's called the kazayas, called an olive size. It means the volume of flour is the same as the volume of an olive, and they give you the measurements for that. And you eat the amount of matzah. Again, the matzah is important to be eaten while reclining. After that, we eat the maror, again, a kazayas, so to speak, an olive size of volume of maror, of romaine lettuce, and or horseradish, fresh horseradish. And you say again the blessing, Al achilas maror. Thank you, Hashem, for giving us the mitzvah to eat maror. We dip that in the charosas and eat the maror. The maror does not need to be eaten while reclining because the maror symbolizes the slavery of the Jewish people, which is when they were not. If someone did eat the maror while reclining, it's okay, but it does not need to be eaten while reclining. Then you have the sandwich. You take matzah and maror, put that together, dip that in charosas. And the sandwich, before we eat it, we say this paragraph which explains why we eat the sandwich. This is to fulfill the opinion of Hillel, who said that the Pesach and the matzah and the maror, all of this had to be eaten in one sandwich. You didn't eat separate courses of matzah and then maror and then Passover sacrifice. You ate the whole thing together. Again, some people recline, some people don't. For that, then we eat the meal, followed by benching, drinking the third cup of wine. We open the door for Elijah. We have the Hallel. We say the chapters of Psalms to thank Hashem for saving us from Egypt, followed by the fourth cup of wine, which we conclude the Seder with L'shana haba Yerushalayim. The next year we should celebrate the Seder in Jerusalem. And many people recite other songs and prayers, and some people recite the book of Shir HaShirim, of Song of Songs, and stay up. Some people actually stay up the whole night talking about the Exodus.
The order of the Haggadah, the songs are much later, right?
The songs happen after the fourth cup. And we say L'shana haba Yerushalayim. Next year in Jerusalem, we drink the fourth cup. We say the after blessing. That's technically the end of the Haggadah. Some people add songs. Different communities have different traditions. Which songs to add? Some don't really say many songs. Some say a lot of songs. Whatever. But the main part of the Haggadah, the part that everyone really has to do, is through drinking the fourth cup and saying the after blessing and saying L'shana haba.
Thank you.